sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Scott Sports 101. I'm Scott Trella. Tonight we're going to talk about the Browns' GM vacancy, which they're hiring for, and they've interviewed George Paton now twice, and they also have interviewed Andrew Berry and Massard. And we'll get to all that in just a moment, and we'll talk Cavs if we have time, and we'll talk Tribe as well, if there's time. But first, here is today's Scott Sports 101 trivia question. What Dallas Cowboy player was known as Mr. Cowboy? I will have the answer later in the podcast. George Paton met with the Browns about their general manager vacancy in Minnesota. The Vikings' assistant general manager is at Browns headquarters today, was at Browns headquarters today, for his second interview for the GM job. As a league source told Cleveland.com, and if all goes well, he could replace fired GM John Dorsey very soon. Now, his first interview took place last Saturday in Minnesota. Now, Peyton, who would have final say over roster decisions, was reluctant to accept the initial interview because he assumed the job would go to the other finalist, Eagles Vice President of Football Operations Andrew Berry, a league source told Cleveland.com as well. But he agreed to it for a chance to work with new Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski, with whom he spent 13 years in Minnesota. Patton's entire tenure there. In that span, Peyton and Stefanski helped take the Vikings to the playoffs 6 times, including the NFC Championship game twice. So, Stefanski will be available. Well, he was available to the media tonight at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards ceremony at the Renaissance Hotel in downtown Cleveland, where he was a presenter at that this evening. Payne will have to determine if he has a comfort level working with Chief Strategy Officer Paul DePodesta, who reports directly to Browns ownership, along with the coach, and GM ownership includes Jimmy and Dee Haslam and their son-in-law J.W. Johnson, the executive vice president of the team. Now, Jimmy Haslam has made an alignment and a high priority in the hiring cycle because of the initial discord that's characterized in his 7-year reign. If Paton and DePodesta can flourish together, the hiring makes sense. If not, the Browns could turn to Berry. Berry, 32, is a favorite of Haslam and DePodesta from his 3 years here as the president of player personnel from 2016 to 2018. Berry also got Stefanski to work with Berry also got to Stefanski the Brown to talk to Stefanski with Stefanski and will the Browns Stefanski with the Browns during the head coaching search in 2019. He was a finalist for the head coaching search in 2019. He got to work with that. When Stefanski was passed up by Dorsey in favor of Freddie Kitchens. He was a finalist for the head coaching job. Was passed over in favor of Freddie Kitchens. Now, DePodesta's contract is up this month, but he said he intends to stay with the Browns, and Haslam said in his postseason press conference that the analytics was at odds with either coaching or personnel in the last two reigns, and Haslam is seeking harmony this time around. Now, Patton is one of three candidates the Browns interviewed for the GM job, including Barry and Patriots Director of College Scouting, Monty Ossenfort, but Stefanski favors Patton because of their long history together and Patton's excellent track record as a talent evaluator. And in his 20 plus NFL seasons, one source to Cleveland.com, that Stefanski wants him in the worst way possible. And Peyton has 20 years experience in the NFL with working with Chicago, then Miami, then Minnesota. Now, former Browns linebacker Chris Spielman, younger brother of Vikings GM Rick Spielman, knows Stefanski and Peyton well and believes the pairing is exactly what the Browns need to get to the next level. I think it would behoove the Browns to do everything in their power to hire George Patton, Spielman told Cleveland.com. It makes the most sense for Kevin Stefanski as coach and coach GM team. Now, Patton had passed on the opportunities to leave Minnesota for GM openings in the past. Stefanski wouldn't identify his friend as a favorite. Now, Stefanski and Haslam said, "We brought in some really good candidates." He said, that's what Haslam said. Stefanski said, "I don't want to single anybody out. I just know that Dee and Jimmy Haslam have done their due diligence to make sure that we bring in some really good qualified people, and again, getting to know them in our building and talk to them and understand that shared vision that we all have, and I think it's been a good progress, and I can agree with that. But the Browns seem to have zeroed in on Peyton, the only candidate they've met with twice, and that is absolutely true. I don't think we have a timeline, but I think we're huddling up and having a lot of good discussions, and we'll see where it goes, Stefanski said. The Browns have a talented roster built by Dorsey, but the team lacked chemistry and discipline this past season, forcing the Haslams to yet another coaching change. Kitchen's dismissal seemed inevitable when the team had faded from the playoff contention, but Dorsey's dismissal, the team framed, it was a mutual parting, but it was a surprise. And as he helps the Browns find the GM, Stefanski is still assembling his coaching staff, and they could be hiring Bill Callahan as an offensive lineman, but they are not guaranteed to get the 49ers offensive coordinator. And I'll keep you updated on that. Peyton is the first candidate to receive a known second interview. And the Browns interviewed Patriots Director of College Scouting Monty Ossenfort, and Eagles Vice President of Football Operations Andrew Berry on Friday. And Peyton interviewed for the job the first time last Saturday, but they interviewed him the second time today here in Berea. And I think and Haslam said, I think we had some really qualified candidates in there, Stefanski said. It's always fun to talk football with all of them, so we're gathering information as we go. Stefanski declined to say if there are or will be additional candidates considered for the job. And Stefanski said, "My relationship with him is very similar to my relationship with all of the people in that building, Stefanski said. The relationship between Stefanski and Patton, considering the dots, that the two would be a perfect match, considering Payton's experience working with Vikings GM Rick Spielman throughout his career, which dates back to the late 90s in Chicago before they moved on to Miami, then to Minnesota. Now, I feel that the Browns have interviewed some great candidates for the GM job and are making really good progress. And I'll give you an update on this, and I'll let you know when they're hoping to have somebody hired by this Saturday. I'll let you know if they do on my next podcast, which will be probably one of my regular ones on Sunday, because this Sunday is the Pro Bowl, and that's just a for fun game. It's meaningless. So, but right now it's time to reveal the answer to today's Scott Sports 101 trivia question. What Dallas Cowboys player was known as Mr. Cowboy? And if you said Bob Lilly, you are correct. Bob Lilly earned the title of Mr. Cowboy by being the first Dallas Cowboy player to achieve, well, pretty much everything. He was the first player to be inducted to the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor in 1975. He was also the first player to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame after spending his entire career with Dallas. And I will have another trivia question on my next podcast, so stay tuned for that. We're almost out of time, but I want to just briefly mention the Cavs failed to snap this losing streak. They lost their sixth straight to the Washington Wizards, 124 to 112, and the Cavs never led in this game once. They were down by 68 to 61 at halftime, and things just got worse from the third quarter on. They were down 100 to 86 at the end of the third, and then the Wizards just pulled away, and the Cavs just could not overcome the hurdle. So they'll try to snap this 6-game losing streak when they take on the Chicago Bulls at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse Arena on Saturday. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock on Fox Sports Ohio. Well, that's just about going to wrap it up for this edition of Scott Sports 101. I'll be back with one of my regular podcasts on Sunday, but until then, always remember, be a team player each and every day in every way possible. So long, everybody. 3, 2, 1, I'm done.